An extraordinary combination of heady engineering, hardcore science, and nearly mythical art that comes together in a single high-performance package.
There have been supercars almost for as long as there's been the automobile.
Machines that break convention, push the boundaries, and live on the bleeding edge of mobility.
Supercars are exclusive, they're high performance, they're everything we think exotic cars should be.
From their primordial forms through their latest and greatest state-of-the-art variants, key bits of kit and crucial tech have transformed motorized carriages into rocket ships for the road.
One of the reasons technology has been so important in the evolution of a supercar is that it's enabled practically anyone to drive it.
This is the story of mankind's relentless pursuit for speed, the remarkable machines that brave the way, and the amazing evolution of supercar tech. Today's supercars are remarkable pieces of advanced tech that stir the soul and capture the imagination.
Supercars are these haloed, ideal vehicles. They are things we hang on our walls. They're aspirational. They're pieces of automotive history that just connect with us in a way that's emotional.
They're machines that live on the bleeding edge, where high-tech merges with high performance in a battle of physics.
I would define the evolution of a supercar as a vehicle that's gone from being capable of driven only by professionals to something that practically anyone can drive thanks to technology.
Special cars devoted to high performance and extreme design have been a hallmark of the automotive industry since its inception over 130 years ago.
So when somebody says supercar to me, I think of technology. I think of engineering. It has to have some new technology. It has to sort of push the forefront of technology. It has to be on the vanguard of technology. It also has to have a lot of power. Some of it's design, too. A supercar has to be striking. Supercars get a super reaction from you, whether it's like, wow, or that's beautiful. A strength in engineering, it's a strength in what its engine is. It's sort of a vision of the future before the future happens.
A vision of the future that showcases an automaker's ability to stretch every aspect of design, engineering, performance, and technology without the constraints of mass economies of scale.
A supercar is the best of what a company can do in terms of engineering and design and luxury and everything.
Extreme performance, that's what it's all about.
Supercars push the envelope while occupying a realm of pure fantasy.
They become part of the automotive myth of what a true, perfect vehicle looks like.
They're a potent cocktail of innovation, power, and sexiness, all rolled into one piece of glorious mechanical art.
Engineers and technologists in today's supercar era are looking to continually push the envelope, and it can be a matter of a few miles an hour, it can be a matter of a few tenths of a second faster. And as we get to the very pointy end of performance, that's going to become a higher and higher stakes race.
Today's high-stakes race to build the ultimate supercar has very humble origins. It traces all the way back to mankind's quest for mechanized transportation which begins in the late 19th century.
In the earliest days of automotive history, there really wasn't anything resembling a supercar. Cars were just meant to get down the road.
At the time, numerous inventors raced to create the world's first viable form of mechanized personal mobility.
Most people didn't go more than a few blocks from their house on any sort of regular basis. So the world was completely different and unprepared for the automobile. The automobile had to create the world that it could exist in.
From the outset, the car industry becomes a beacon for forward-thinking engineers interested in emerging tech. It's a mechanical gold rush that's not all that different from early Silicon Valley.
Early on in the automobile's development, there were steam cars, there was the internal combustion engine, and there were electric cars. And all three were competing at the same time. People were just trying to figure out what was going to work for the future, and nothing was set in stone.
In 1886, a German engineer decides that while horses are good, harnessing horsepower is even better. His name is Carl Benz, and his invention will reshape the world as we know it.
Carl Benz had the dream of creating a horseless carriage. His idea was an engine-powered vehicle, but there was no engine nor a suitable car to put it in. He started from absolutely scratch.
When Benz bolts a single-cylinder combustion engine onto a three-wheeled carriage, the trajectory of personal travel shifts forever. He names his invention the Benz Patent Motorwagen.
The 1886 patent wagon is widely regarded as being the first car.
It can lay claim to effectively inventing the modern automobile. If any single car company can be tied with the history of the automobile from start to finish, or start to today, then it would be Mercedes-Benz.
The Motorwagen ushers in the automotive age. The machine is so revolutionary that it actually predates the word automobile itself.
It's a little three-wheeled thing. You wouldn't really necessarily think of it as a car. It's more of a carriage.
And it seems like they're important cars for every phase of automotive history. 1886 Benz was important.
I can only imagine the impact that the Motorwagen had when it dropped in 1886. At the time, the only way to get around was by walking, or riding a bicycle, or a horse and carriage, or a train.
The three-wheeler features a single-cylinder four-stroke engine that makes just 9/10 of 1 horsepower and weighs a mere 100 kilograms.
There was no infrastructure, there were no roads suited for these cars. The idea of a car was brand new. I really cannot emphasize enough how revolutionary this was for not only personal mobility, but the human race and the progress it made in the ensuing century.
The patent Motorwagen helps mobilize humanity, yet it's the early iteration of the internal combustion engine that will ultimately be the most transformative.
It was man's ability to basically be self-propelled. The gasoline car gave a lot of freedom to people.
These were objects, the power of which you had in your hand, or you had at your foot. They were entirely up to you. You didn't have to worry about feeding it oats. You didn't have to worry about it getting sick, at least organically. You didn't have to worry about it getting worn out. The cars didn't do that. So people thought, you know, we can have fun with these cars.
Internal combustion engines are more reliable than organic forms of transportation. Even though they're relatively small and lightweight in size, they're capable of generating vast amounts of power. Now all kinds of practical applications, ranging from early airplanes to handheld chainsaws, are possible.
The early ones were noisy and loud and very unreliable, but gasoline was readily available. Eventually, they figured out a lot of the early teething problems, and you could get a car that would run quickly and run well, and you could get from point A to point B without a horse.
The emergence of combustion tech results from the confluence of two major societal shifts: easily available petrol, and more accessible precision machining.
The development of the internal combustion engine is a byproduct of the development of modern machining and modern machining abilities. It wouldn't exist without it. Well, that ability didn't really exist in the middle of the 19th century. And so the ability to measure an inch to the 10th of an inch, to the 100th of an inch, to the 1,000th of an inch, the creation of this ability is really what allowed engines to be developed, because an internal combustion engine depends on very tight tolerances.
Internal combustion engines work thanks to 4 key principles. First, air is drawn into a cylinder. When the piston moves up, it squeezes the air and fuel together. Then, a spark ignites the compressed mixture. The resulting explosion pushes the piston down, propelling the machine forward before the return stroke releases the exhaust gas.
This idea of you would use 4 strokes, this was really going hand in hand with the development of precision machining, because a car engine depends on your ability to measure things to a very highly accurate degree.
While the patent Motorwagen is a game changer, it's also an embryonic version of a car. The machine doesn't even have a steering wheel, because like the word automobile, it hasn't been invented yet.
It blew people's minds. It was amazing. Where's the horse? This thing moves? How does that happen? Today, if you look at a 900 horsepower Ferrari, it blows your mind. It's stunning. How does that work? So in a sense, they're related. You know, the automobile technology march has continued to produce things that astound.
Numerous investors try to perfect Benz's initial idea. However, the format of the automobile doesn't truly crystallize until 1901, when an Austrian businessman named Emil Jelinek asked the Daimler Motor Company to build him a very special machine.
Well, Mercedes-Benz have always had their unique stamp in automotive history.
The result of the request is the Mercedes 1901, a machine that's often recognized as the very first proper motor car.
It had a low center of gravity, a pressed steel frame, a light and high-powered engine, and a honeycomb radiator. With these features, it is regarded as the first modern automobile.
In a single masterstroke, the 1901 defines the basic layout that the vast majority of 20th century cars will use. It uses a pressed steel chassis with a low-mounted high-performance engine, which combines to give the machine a low center of gravity. The 1901 also features seats for occupants, a steering wheel, and a honeycomb radiator integrated into the front of the vehicle.
It was enough just to make them go down the road. And then there came a time where people said, you know, we can have fun with these things. It's kind of cool having all this power at your disposal without it being an actual horse in front of you.
While the 1901 creates the template for the modern automobile, it'll take a Midwestern farmer to bring it to prominence, and a group of British aristocratic playboys to push the boundaries of speed. Today's supercars are wickedly fast and sublimely engineered high-tech marvels that push the boundaries of our imagination.
But that's what supercars are about, meeting one extreme and then taking it to another. And then you meet that extreme and you take it to another. There's always development possibilities. It's up to the technicians to explore those possibilities and make them viable for a passenger automobile.
Amazingly, the technical evolution of the supercar owes much of its success to the ordinary automobiles that first helped mobilize humanity.
The story of transportation is the story of movement of humans and human connection, ultimately, and it's a matter of sort of how you get from point A to point B.
During the early part of the 20th century, moving great distances by car is nothing short of revolutionary. People no longer have to rely on horse-pulled carriages to travel. Yet the burgeoning field of motorized transportation is still in its infancy.
When you go back and read magazines like The Horseless Carriage in 1906, all of the drivers were wealthy by and large because that's the only people who could afford cars. And they were primarily interested in driving for pleasure.
The machine that levels up the automobile forever is the 1908 Ford Model T.
The Model T is critical to automobile history.
Ford is the company that put the world on wheels.
It's easy to make the case that this single machine is the most important car of all time.
When the Model T was introduced by Ford Motor Company, it was a huge change in the social fabric of America and the world. It gave the common man an ability to go beyond a 20-mile radius from home.
The Model T is the vision of just one man, Henry Ford. The son of a farmer, he imagines a future where everyone can own their very own car.
Prior to Henry Ford with the Model T, the horse was the main means of transportation. And that was a constraint, of course, on everyone's lives. But just to think in the morning, I'm going to go see Aunt Mary 100 miles away, you couldn't do it.
The Model T made motoring affordable to the average working man. The notion of a family car was born with the Model T. It didn't exist before then.
The inexpensive nature of the machine will ultimately help usher in the supercar era.
Affordability mattered hugely in the early years because without popular demand for cars, you wouldn't have the infrastructure or the great industries that then went on to produce the supercars. It's all one ecosystem. I would say you absolutely could not have a LaFerrari without the Model T. They are directly interconnected.
The Model T also moves the game along thanks to its use of interchangeable parts. At the time, most pieces of a car are individually built, which means each vehicle is completely bespoke. Ford decides to build his parts to exacting specifications that allow them to fit into any number of identical versions of the same vehicle.
At the dawn of the automotive age, the earliest beginnings of interchangeable parts, of mass production, these were already underway, and the automobile slotted into that because it's so many parts in a car compared to most of the other machines out there at the time.
According to legend, in order to keep costs down, Ford insists that his suppliers deliver their parts in wooden crates, which he breaks down and repurposes as planks in Model T pickup truck beds. It's one of the earliest examples of automotive sustainability on a mass scale.
There's been enough development. Why don't we make sports cars? Why don't we make cars just for the sheer joy of driving them?
The speeding ticket was invented the day after the automobile because the towns hated the cars coming through so fast.
While the Model T focuses on utilitarian transportation, in another corner of the car industry, other engineers aim to heighten the pleasure of driving. Perhaps the best example is the 1913 Mercer Type 35J raceabout.
A lot of people think of the Mercer as the world's first sports car, well, at least America's first sports car. That's because it was maximum performance with minimum comfort.
Widely considered one of the first purpose-built sporting cars, the Mercer 35J features a unique T-head engine that sits in a well-balanced chassis.
What the Mercer raceabout shared with its stablemates was a fairly large T-head four-cylinder engine, which was, in its day, almost as exotic as it got. It had a very low-slung chassis, a chassis that barely fit over the axles to keep it low.
The 35J's performance is absolutely striking. It's been less than 3 decades since the invention of the automobile, and the raceabout is already hitting a 90-mile-per-hour top speed.
That was really something. That would have made the Mercer the Lamborghini of its day. Way more carved than even the roads were capable of handling.
Outright speed isn't the Mercer's only supercar-like trait. It's also one of the very first machines to place importance on design.
That's another part of being a supercar, is the look. You have to have the look. What good is spending a lot of money on a vehicle or anything really and going out and about with it and expressing yourself if nobody knows what you have?
While the Mercer causes a sensation, another highly exotic bit of machinery blazes a new technological trail: the dual overhead camshaft.
The development of the overhead camshaft, which goes right back to the dawn of the automotive age.
The main benefit of a dual overhead camshaft is that it allows an engine to use 4 valves per cylinder. Each camshaft operates 2 valves. One handles the intake, while the other operates the exhaust. And the combination allows an engine to run at higher speeds, which creates even more power and performance.
We know from basic physics that it's easier to spin something than it is to reciprocate something. So if you're going to reciprocate something, meaning it's going to go back and forth, you have to start it, accelerate it, stop it, and reverse its direction. Whereas if you spin something, it just spins.
The Peugeot L76 is the first vehicle to feature dual overhead camshafts, and it pays off. The car wins the 1912 French Grand Prix. Amazingly, over a century later, you can still find the same basic tech in the humblest economy machines.
Instead of having push rods actuate the valves, with the notion that if you replace that with something that spun that could then actuate the valves, you would have access to much higher engine speeds and thus more horsepower.
Ah, happy memory. Just a few twists of the crank and there we are. All ready now, off we go.
Back in the day, starting a car is a labor-intensive task. It takes great strength to crank an engine by hand and is extremely dangerous. However, all that changes with the introduction of the 1912 Cadillac. It is the very first car with an electric starter.
And that set the template under which that sort of raised the bar to the point that they've been living under almost ever since, really. So their reputation was hard-earned, but very much justified.
The introduction of the electric starter not only takes the physicality out of driving, but is also a crucial step towards the high-wattage electrical systems found in today's most powerful supercars. And they owe a debt of gratitude to the 1913 Lancia Theta.
Lancia was famous for building these extremely capable and powerful, over-engineered cars that just could hold the road like nothing else.
Lancia is known for a lot of firsts. They've been characterized sort of as being an Italian Mercedes-Benz.
The Theta is the initial car to feature a complete electrical system.
Lancia were the mad scientists of the automotive world for a long time. They were this company that tried new things and really pushed the envelope in car technology for racing and for street cars.
While the machines of the early teens advance motoring, there's still one ordinary and everyday piece of tech that lags behind.
The primary struggle was one of infrastructure. There were no roads, effectively.
At the start of the 20th century, less than 10% of the industrialized world's roads are paved. The rest are dirt paths that frequently turn into muddy quagmires.
The roads that were there were extremely rough and way beyond what we consider a rough road today. I mean, they were trails. So the first motorists were constantly struggling against the elements.
Basic roads have been with us since Roman times. However, modern road construction techniques can be traced to a process developed by a Scottish engineer named John McAdam in the early 1800s. Macadam decides to build his roadbeds with multiple layers of soil and crushed stone aggregate before packing them down with a heavy roller, which creates a solid foundation that's more resistant to the elements.
And it wasn't until people had cars and later roads to drive them on that people were able to travel any distances with any regularity.
The rapid acceptance and installation of glorious asphalt will help push the progress of motoring. Yet it will take some daring and adventurous pilots to truly drive the evolution of the super sports car. Cars are a cornerstone of contemporary life that offer humanity the freedom of travel and allows people to move both goods and services great distances. Yet even from the automobile's earliest days, drivers have reveled in pushing their performance to see just how far and fast they can go.
It was very much a kind of this new invention that was really kind of a toy for exploring the countryside, because back then nobody traveled. I mean, if you didn't travel by ship or by train, you stayed in one place.
Early tech adopters ignore the limitations as driving for pleasure becomes a new pastime. And the more people get out on the road, the more they race.
Since the birth of the automobile, racing has been part of practically every manufacturer.
The 1920s are the era of the gentleman racer, when the rich drive for glory and car companies use racing to advance the science of the supercar.
They had huge technical challenges, which to some extent mirror the technical challenge that Silicon Valley had in the early days, because the technology wasn't there to achieve the dreams that they had.
If you're going to have a supercar, it needs to stand out not only in how it performs, but in how it looks.
Pushing scientific boundaries in cars is an expensive venture, back then and today.
Cars today seem like they're built to intimidate. It's like, I'm rich and I'm going to flaunt it. You're just going to have to live with my being so cool that I can afford this. Back then, wealth was quieter. Wealth expressed itself in bespoke products.
Perhaps the greatest bespoke automotive expression is unveiled in 1924. Some even call it the world's first supercar, the Bugatti Type 35.
The Type 35 was the car that put Bugatti on the map.
The Type 35 was a Grand Prix racing machine.
The Type 35 dominates the Roaring '20s like few others. It's one of the most successful race cars of all time.
Everything that came before it kind of came together in this cohesive shape, and it was just unquestionably perfect.
Really wonderful machine, a great all-rounder, powerful, charismatic, beautiful, fast.
The Type 35 stands out as one of the most effortlessly beautiful motor cars ever made, and makes a name for itself thanks to its advanced powertrain.
The Type 35 not only had the most fantastic gearbox of all pre-war racing cars, and was so easy to handle and had such a light steering, but it was in its entity, the package, which made it a joy to drive.
The machine weighs just 750 kilos and features a hollowed forged front axle to shave weight. However, the machine's crowning achievement might be its cast aluminum wheels, which improve handling and continue to be influential to this day.
We're talking about 40 years before the term supercar was invented, and you have this car that just, it's untouchable. And so if we want to take a look at the definition of supercar, a supercar, a car that can leap tall buildings in a single bound, faster than a locomotive, this was a supercar.
As French racers become a formidable force, A country away, the Germans pursue a different strategy with the Mercedes 28/95.
They took an engine that they were making for aircraft, World War I bombers and World War I fighter planes, and they adapted it for automotive use.
The machine uses a gigantic supercharged 7-liter inline 6-cylinder engine that generates nearly 100 horsepower. The 28/95 is also notable because it features Mercedes' first use of an overhead camshaft.
Here's a car with an aircraft engine. This is a car that could keep a heavier-than-air object aloft for hours at a time, harnessed to the ground. It was propelling a terrestrial object, which was utterly amazing.
While the 28/95's engine gets most of the credit, it's actually how the machine stops that gets the glory. It's the very first Mercedes to be equipped with brakes at all 4 wheels. A technical revolution that quickly becomes the standard in automotive engineering worldwide.
It has a Teutonic severity about its appearance that in its day, you could say it was a little bit feared. It was a very intimidating looking car, but that's what you wanted. You wanted to look intimidating. You were in a car that, frankly, was the king of the road.
Across the English Channel, the need for speed and the desire to prove it on the track helps inspire one of the greatest British motoring machines. The 1927 Bentley 4.5-liter.
You have the Bentley blowers. These things were just absolute beasts out there.
There have always been performance cars every decade. The blower Bentleys were sort of supercars of their day.
Throughout the early 1920s, Bentley racks up piles of racing victories. Yet by the back half of the decade, its clear competitors are closing the gap. Company founder W.O. Bentley's answer is to build a bigger and more powerful engine.
W.O.'s solution for creating more power was to just build a bigger engine.
While W.O. wants to enlarge his engine, a Bentley driver named Tim Birkin takes an alternative approach. He's part of a tight-knit group of gentlemen racers who gravitate towards racing and come to be known as the Bentley Boys.
Now, the Bentley Boys were this group of wealthy playboys, basically, that enjoyed racing, and they'd take their Bentleys and they'd go and race in these races like the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and they'd actually win.
The Bentley Boys took Bentley to racing glory in the 1920s. They drove Bentleys to the limit across some of the most famous racetracks in Europe, including Brooklands and Le Mans. And it was this group of gentlemen racers that really gave Bentley its performance heritage, and they won Le Mans with Bentley 5 times between 1924 and 1930.
Birkin sees the success that Bugatti and Alfa Romeo have on the track with supercharged machines and wants to use the same type of forced induction system on his Bentley.
The supercharged 4.5-litre Bentley, also known as the Blower, is one of the most iconic cars of Bentley's history. It was created by one of the Bentley boys, Sir Tim Birkin. He commissioned an engineer, Amherst Villiers, to design a supercharger.
A supercharger is a mechanical air compressor that increases the pressure or density of air entering an engine. When you force more oxygen into the cylinders, it means there's more potential energy to exploit when ignited.
A supercharger is a way to get more air into an engine. The more air an engine takes in, the more fuel it can use, the more power it can make.
The 4.5 blower isn't the first machine to feature a supercharger. However, it's perhaps the most important early iteration. When Tim Birkin installs a supercharger on his Bentley 4.5, it creates an additional 65 horsepower and rockets the machine to a second-place finish at the 1930 French Grand Prix.
At Bentley today, we still own one of those road cars and indeed one of the 4 team cars, which is the most valuable Bentley in history.
The blowers symbolize a powerful era of British motoring and help cement Bentley's place in the upper echelon of supercar constructors. Yet engineers continue to seek new and innovative solutions to unleash more power and better performance.
Going back to the start of the automobile, there have always been engineers and automakers who have been obsessed with getting the most powerful car.
The quest for speed is a common link that runs through all the automotive ages. However, the advancements found on the track are just starting to unfold. Some brilliant silver arrows will help launch the supercar to dazzling new heights. Supercars, machines that lead the way. They're the best of breed, and they offer technical glimpses into the future of four-wheeled transportation.
The supercar is just another expression of the feats of human engineering or the accomplishments of human engineering. A supercar is not just one component. It's the artful organization of several components.
Although the term supercar isn't officially christened until the 1960s, high-performance-seeking machines have been front and center throughout the entire rise of the automobile. From its early beginnings as a curious invention and across its remarkable evolution, all the way to its permanent place at the zenith of hyper-personal performance.
One of the things about supercars is there is an addictiveness that comes with it. Is like once you go to 100, you're like, okay, it's not so bad. It's like your fear threshold gets a little bit further out. They're all just pushing that envelope a little bit further, a little bit further.
Today's outrageously exotic machines are technically sophisticated bits of kit capable of exceptional high-speed feats. Yet the logic that underpins them is often based on the remarkable lessons learned at the track in the 1930s. A period of glorious road racing known as the Silver Arrow era.
The first Silver Arrow racing era started in the 1930s. It is almost unbelievable, but these Silver Arrows were as powerful and as fast as today's Formula One cars.
So you have these really fast German automobiles that the press labels Silver Arrows because of how competent they are at going high rates of speed.
The Silver Arrows are born thanks to an arbitrary rule. In 1932 in Paris, Grand Prix Racing's governing body decides to restrict the total weight of a race car to just 750 kilos.
Mercedes formed a lot of its reputation by going racing.
At the time, racing is a deadly business. Cars reach top speeds in excess of 300 kph and often outrun their capabilities. To reduce the danger, officials decide to create a weight limit. They believe manufacturers will only be able to use smaller, lightweight, and less powerful engines. Only the simple assumption is horribly wrong. It underestimates the continual march of technological progress.
These racing cars were way ahead of the time.
Two German car companies seize the opportunity. Both Mercedes-Benz and their arch-rival Auto Union, which will later rebrand as Audi, go all in to win.
In the 1930s, the Mercedes Silver Arrows were just completely dominant.
In 1937, Mercedes-Benz introduces the W125. It uses a supercharged straight 8-cylinder engine that produces a mind-boggling 646 horsepower and is more powerful than contemporary Formula One cars through the early 80s. The machine's primary competitor is another masterpiece of engineering, the Auto Union Type C.
The Auto Union Type C, the car in the back of me, 16-cylinder mid-engine, 6 liters capacity, 520 horsepower, and a torque of approximately 870 Newton meters.
The Auto Union Silver Arrows are perhaps the most influential machines of the era because they help lay the foundation for today's supercars, thanks to their ingenious mid-engine layout, lightweight, and high horsepower powertrain.
Ridiculous low revs, 3,500 RPMs. The top speed of the single-seater is approximately 330, 340 kilometers.
While Grand Prix racing pushes speed and power to new heights, over in France, luxurious and exclusive high performance is also being redefined.
It's very hard to dazzle and amaze today with a supercar the way Bugatti was able to back then.
In 1934, Jean Bugatti designs a new machine that will combine elegance, quality, and performance in one unique technical platform, the Bugatti Type 57.
The Type 57 was the first technical platform for Bugatti. It brought financial success to the company.
It is the most beautiful, the most balanced, the most incredibly well-designed car of all the late 1930s supercars.
The machine's body uses an advanced aviation alloy that's comprised of 90% magnesium and 10% aluminum. It can't be welded, so the factory hand rivets the sheets together. However, the vehicle's epic advancement comes from its chassis.
The very first concept of a platform giving way for many different and very attractive body styles.
The most famous version is the Type 57 Atlantique. Just 4 are ever made, and today only 3 remain. This is one of them.
The Type 57 SC Atlantic was a combination of wonderful attributes all rolled into one thing.
This was the Bugatti Veyron before there was a Bugatti Veyron. I mean, it established Bugatti as this preeminent car brand that was the ultimate expression of Art Deco French design. The fact that there are only 3 and they're almost invaluable because they don't change hands very often.
As the Germans and the French work to advance their vision of a supercar, in America, another marque begins carving out its own unique version of high-performance motoring.
In the 1920s and 1930s, if you said you drove a Duesenberg, that was it. They were the Ne Plus Ultra, the as good as it got car. This is a vehicle that embodied every technical innovation of its day, and not just in a tiny little engine.
The 1933 Duesenberg SJ is a supercharged 7-liter inline 8-cylinder powered rocket.
They took double overhead cams, 4 valves per cylinder, aluminum construction, and they scaled it up to 420 cubic inches for the Model J. All of a sudden, you had a car that had 265 horsepower when its nearest domestic competitor had 130 horsepower.
The Duesenberg SJ is so powerful for the day that early promotional materials state an owner can only be passed if they allow it. Yet the factory doesn't stop trying to up the ante and keeps finding new ways to eke out more performance.
A couple years later, they said, well, what if we experimented with the manifolding? And then they evolved a kind of manifold they call ram's horn induction. A couple of reports estimated that it turned 400 horsepower on the dynamometer. The engine was said to be so powerful, it would chew up the dynamometer. There wasn't a dyno that was powerful enough at the time to handle it.
While Duesenberg pushes technological advancement in the hopes of finding more power, back in France, the French government offers funding to inspire motoring success. The result is the De La Haye Type 145.
The De La Haye 145 was some special car. In the years before Ferrari came along with their V12 engine, De La Haye had a V12 engine.
The French government offers 1 million francs to any company that can beat the Italian speed record around a racing circuit outside of Paris. De La Haye answers the call with a 4.5-liter V12 powered Grand Prix racer.
V12 engines became darlings of the performance world because you had so many more power impulses per revolution of the crankshaft. And that greater quantity of power impulses gave a smoother delivery of power, more consistent power, and ultimately greater power.
pilot Renee Dreyfus sets a fast lap average of 146.6 kph and takes back the speed record. Yet the machine's story is far from over.
After World War II, Henri Chaperon, a coach builder, got a hold of a couple of pre-war Type 145 Grand Prix chassis and said, you know what, let's make these road cars.
The repurposed Grand Prix cars quickly become super sports cars for the street.
This is a coach builder taking Grand Prix car and putting voluptuous coachwork on it. It's like taking a prize fighter and putting him in a tux.
The story of the supercar is the relentless pursuit to push the limits of science and speed. Yet it all comes to a halt on September 1st, 1939, when Germany's Nazi party invades Poland.
During World War II, the fun stopped. All of a sudden, all the technology was being diverted to perfecting machines of war.
During World War II, cars take a back seat to military needs. The smartest engineers are asked to build weapons of war. And the auto industry's focus is diverted to wartime materiel. Yet the hunger to produce stunning cars is never extinguished. The coming post-war years will reignite a global race to perfect super sports cars, and with them, the world's very first supercar.
There's this huge adoption of technologies going on. The first 50 years of the car took a long time and developed slowly, and it's been nothing like the second 50 years of the car, where the technology adoption is so much faster.
The search for speed is a hallmark of motoring throughout the ages. The foundation that early automotive pioneers forged changes society and sporty cars, which will one day be rechristened as supercars. The ultimate example of mankind's need to explore the limits of high-performance automobiles.
The movement from horse and carriage to the patent Motorwagen to the supercars of today is this progression of finding ways to get people to connect in physical space through automotive engineering and technology, and through the advancement of things like engines and transmissions and design, and our desire as humans to connect in a way across space that is engaging and fun.